Well, good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. The world is changing. Are you ready for it? Is it changing for the worse, or is it changing for the better? And that's going to depend on your outlook. But it's, for the most part, by most metrics, it's changing for the better. Now, is it changing for the better long term, forever? Probably not. These things go in fits and starts, and for a while things look very gloomy, and then we get a reverse of the pendulum swing, and they look better and all that. Right now, I'll tell you what, they are looking better. But there's something that you need to realize during good times, and that is you need to adjust what you're doing in order to, well, like we say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, right? Don't I have a different cup? I should have showed you that. But we adjust our preparedness efforts depending on what time we're in and what times we expect may come. Okay, now we've come through a kind of the desert. We've been in the wilderness, as it were. The last 4 years, it seemed like the world was collapsing. It was just absolutely falling apart. Our government was against us. The world was fragmenting. It didn't seem like there was any way out of it. And then all of a sudden, something happened, and we had a new president and an entire new outlook on things in our country. That country being the United States, and maybe it might be coming for a lot of you who live elsewhere too. We will see. I hope so, because the world has kind of been draped in a wet blanket for too long, and it's time to get out from underneath that. So we've seen a lot of improvements. Did you see? And we've seen things done in ways that they've never been done before, ever. President Trump has, and those of you who have heard me before, you know that I've followed Trump since way back before his first book. As soon as his first book, The Art of the Deal, came out, I read it. I learned a lot, I'll be honest, and it helped me in business. But I learned about him, and then I've read his other books, and I suggest that if you're interested in that, and if you're not, you don't have to. If you're interested in that, I suggest you read some of his books. You'll kind of see where the guy's coming from, and you'll understand more about what's going on. But he approaches situations much differently than anybody else, and that's always been the key to his success. This isn't a political video, and it's not a supporting Trump video, although I do. But it's just a way of understanding that he approaches things much differently than anybody else has. And when you approach things differently, you get different results. Okay, you know the old saying, it's overused, but the definition of insanity is doing what you've always done and expecting different results, right? Well, that's kind of the circle that the world has found itself in. And finally, we've broken out of that with the uprising of the majority of the American people. Okay, so it wasn't one guy that did it. It was one guy that said, okay, I'm willing to stand up, take a bullet, right? Stand up, be the leader, be the martyr, be the everything. Stand up and take the lead, and he's not giving up. And so the American people saw that, at least the majority did. They saw that, and they said, okay, this is what we've been waiting for, and we're rising up too. The result has just been unbelievable changes in our government and our country. When you have a change in government, you have a change in country. Vice versa. When you have a change in the country and the people, you have a change in government, finally. And then that brings about the change that the people want. Did you hear this morning, and I'm going to be talking about what you should be doing in these changing times. Did you hear this morning that Kash Patel was confirmed as director of the FBI? I think he's going to do a great job. I knew the last good director, probably the only good director of the FBI, Clarence Kelly. He used to be police chief in Kansas City. I didn't know him when I was in law enforcement, but he left when I was 19. He left two doors up from the girl I was dating at the time, and And so I'd wave at him, and and I remember when when he was appointed, he was police chief of Kansas City. He had been FBI, and then he was police chief of Kansas City, and then he was appointed to be director of the FBI when Hoover, at the end of Hoover's reign, and he was a good one. But like I said, I didn't know him. I knew him to wave, but I knew a lot about him, and he was a straight arrow guy. We haven't had a straight arrow guy in the FBI since then. We've had politicians, and so the appointment of Kash Patel it's very important. It's very important. Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice, unbelievable appointment. Kristi Noem, unbelievable appointment. Tom Homan, unbelievable appointment. Hegseth, great. Look at all the 4 stars he's fired. Okay. We are actually getting some problems solved. We're getting things done. But back to Patel, you've probably seen that Trump also made him the acting director of ATF. Now, how many in our world, in the preparedness world, have always said that the ATF, number one, has no right to exist? They are one of the most abusive federal agencies that there are. Those of you who haven't read Unintended Consequences, I suggest that you do. It's the Atlas Shrugged of the Second Amendment world. But his appointment of Patel as the acting director of ATF, in addition to be the director of the FBI, I mean, it's unparalleled. It's unprecedented. Who does that? Only Trump does these things. And who knows what's coming? Okay. Now, in addition to that, how many things that we, those of us who feel a certain way, have been pounding on for years? This ought to happen, this ought to happen, this ought to happen, this ought to happen, right? How many of those things are happening? I mean, within the first, what's it been, 5 weeks since Trump has been president? 5 weeks. And look at everything he's done. And now Bondi says, the Epstein files are on my desk. Can you imagine if what people suspect are in those files actually comes forward and things are done about it? Prosecutions are actually initiated? Can you imagine if investigations and prosecutions are initiated against all of those people who were involved in the corruption of our government? There will be many out there who will say, "Oh, it's not going to happen. Never happens. It's blah blah blah." And I'm not going to argue with that. I mean, regardless of the hope that I have that it will happen, I've lived too many years of things not happening to just assume that it's going to. But we hope. Can you imagine? What if all these things happen? Now, things that we never would have imagined happening before are happening. They're shutting down the border. They are deporting people right and left. They are raiding people right and left. I'm going to be talking on a second one about get ready for a shortage of beef. And there's reasons for that and other meat. But the world is changing, and it's changing as a result of the American people rising up, voting in Donald Trump, and the way that Trump does business. So are you ready for the change? That's the question. The change is that so many people who have been pursuing a preparedness lifestyle, and you've heard me say this before, have done so out of fear because they've been encouraged to be fearful. Whether it's the news, whether it's YouTube channels, whether it's whatever. It's all about this is horrible, this is horrible, this is horrible. And you need to be afraid, and you need to hide, and you need to do this. And that's never been the way for our channel here. It's always been a message of positivism. Look what you can do to make your life better. Don't rely on the government or the world around you. Those of you who have read my books, the Stonemont series, And I will always refer back to that because that's the reason that I started this channel some years ago, was simply to talk about the Stonemont series and the lessons contained therein. And I know that cost me a lot of viewership because I talk like a writer. The lessons contained therein, instead of saying something like the lessons in it. I know that. Sorry. But I really started this channel to talk about the lessons in the Stonemont series, and then of course we got wound up into many other things. But if you've read that series, my series, the Stonemont series, and the links, if you haven't, I suggest you do. The links are down below. You can get them either through Amazon or from me, and the best way to get them is through me, because we have a special on it, and I get to sign them for you, and we send an extra the Stonemont notebook with your order. But the links are down below. Order them through stonemont.us. And when you read that series, you'll not only, you'll love the story. It's a continuing serialized story in 7 books. But you will learn so much. And what you will learn is all about positivism. It's the positive aspects of preparedness. It's not about the horrible things, although I do address some horrible things, but I talk about the positive way to handle them. And learning from that and approaching your preparedness from a positive aspect will build your life and will build your preparedness much better than doing it out of fear ever will. And so we're coming into a time now that is going to be a great time for developing, for further building your life, maybe building your business. I talked about that, the importance of that, over on the Prepping for Prosperity channel. It will be a great time to start a business. All sorts of people in the trades have been deported or self-deported. Many more, hundreds of thousands of people have self-deported than have actually been deported. When they know that there's a crackdown, they head out. They don't want to be caught in the net. But there's going to be a lot of jobs that are opening because of that. And it's going to give an opportunity for people who really want to get out there and take a shot and build a business, go after the American dream, to do it. Whereas in the past, there hasn't been. Have you, just think about the other things that are going on and being mentioned. A $5,000 check to each household from the Doge savings, what would you do with that? If it happens, what would you do with it? For the most part, they don't say things like this. They don't dangle that carrot unless they have an idea about actually doing something about it. Because you dangle that carrot out there and then you don't come through, it's gonna make people turn against them, and they know that, and they're not going to do that. So something's going to happen. Trump going down to inspect Fort Knox. What about that? Trump implying, and other people talking about completely disbanding the Internal Revenue Service. Who would have thought that 6 months ago? Who would have thought that 3 months ago, 2 months ago? America could be changing in such a way that it will be almost unrecognizable for what it's been, not just the last 4 years, but over the last 50. Excuse me while I take a sip. One of our most popular mugs, you can get these also on our website, stonemont.us. Shop placement is everything. And it's kind of comes into, a lot of politicians have made a lot of noises out there, but they didn't put their shots where they were effective. And that's kind of what Trump is doing. Isn't that a beautiful mug? If you haven't got them, you can get them. Just think what it would be like to be able to drink your morning coffee out of this mug across from a friend. And he'd say, well, that's a beautiful mug. Where can I get one? And you'll say they're the greatest mugs in the world. You can get them at stonemont.us. So it is a time to be hopeful. And here again, I caution the more negative thinkers to not immediately jump on that and say, hope is not a plan. Well, hope is where it starts. You see, hope is the seed of the plant that grows into success. And I know a lot of people just aren't wired to think that way. But if you are, your time is coming. Your time is here. And there are going to be a lot of opportunities for you to change along with the changing world. You just have to be ready for the opportunities and be willing to make the best use of those opportunities. So, it's not that the time for preparedness is over. The time for preparedness is never over, because preparedness is essentially just continual improvement of your life and ensuring through your own efforts that your life is going to continue on in a high quality regardless of what happens. You insulate yourself from the hills and valleys of the world around you. You prepare because you know that uncertain times could come again. But you have to make the best use of the good times. And we are coming in, I believe, into some very good times. And it's too bad, I know that a great many people don't want to hear that. And isn't that sad? Isn't that sad that many people don't want to hear that good times are coming? Because these are and I've talked about it before, the negative thinkers. There's a negativity bias. People are more comfortable with, problems, with being negative. Because, why? Because the victimhood mentality is pretty common in the preparedness world. Oh, woe is me. Remember that hee-haw thing where the guys came out, those of you who are old enough to, doom, despair, agony on me. I forget what it is. Maybe I'll put it up on the Patreon side. But I mean, they came on and just, oh my, life is horrible, and well, life is not horrible. It's horrible if you let it be for yourself, if you make it be for yourself because you're determined to embrace your a negative mindset. But that should be the first step of preparedness, because that's not really preparedness; that's fear. But the first step of preparedness should really be a positive mindset. Trust in God, and then get out there and do what He tells you to do. What He's written in His book. He told you to prepare for bad times. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say this morning. The world is changing. It's changing. It looks like for the better, and it's going to provide opportunities for you to change in a very positive way if you're ready for it and if you're willing to do it. And again, I don't have my books here with me, but if you want my recommendations on how to do it, read the Stone Mount series. Links down below. The reversion, the revival, the renewal, an appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, hostages to fortune, on wings like eagles. And I just got a notice that supposed to be receiving the new shipment of more books today, so you can order them through me again, and I love it when you do that, because I get to sign them for you and write a little note in the front and send them off to you with a free Stone Mount notebook, and you'll become immersed in the Stone Mount world, and you'll say, I like this world. I want to make my world. You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to do it like I do it or like I say the book does it, but it's going to give you a direction. It's going to show you the possibilities just as a result of good decisions and being responsible, right? Okay. All right. You all have a good day. I'm going to have a great day. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Make use of these positive times. Make use of the changes in the world to change your life, so that no matter what happens in the future, you're going to be more than ready for it. Okay? You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.